And we are recording with the one and only Dr. Robert Malone on Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023, episode 1038, the first episode of the new year. And did you help me? Were you my first episode of last year? Perhaps. Was that my most viewed episode of all time? Perhaps. Was that a year ago today? Perhaps. And am I wearing the same sweater? Perhaps. Am I trying to do some black magic occult ritual to maybe get my podcast more views? No comment. But with that, Dr. Malone, please describe what everyone knows who you are. Your book, Lies My Government Told Me, will be in the description as always, all of your social media. But because I have you for a limited amount of time, please describe the commotion that is going on right now.
So this I don't even know his name, this football player Damar Hamlin that suffered a cardiac arrest event on the field, I guess in the game last night, Buffalo Bills, as I recall, took a hard hit, and it was a hard hit to the chest, and he got up, staggered, went down, and then there was a rapid response, and they succeeded in cardioversion. So they succeeded in bringing him back to life. But after a period of time, it didn't come easy. And he has since been taken to the hospital. I understand that he's more or less stabilized, is what we hear from the press reports. I have no direct intelligence about his condition, but the speculation around whether this was another cause unknown sudden death event, or was it this phenomena that is known as Commotio Cordis, is unclear, and it is bringing out, let's say, the best and the worst of the internet community right now. Some of my colleagues jumped into the fray right away. I can tell you I took a lot of flack last night for not doing that, and I'm so glad I stuck to my guns and didn't, and waited for a little more information to trickle out. But I think Dr. McCullough now is a well-established, highly credentialed renal cardiac specialist. My understanding is he made some casual comments to Steve Kirsch, who then amplified them, and that triggered pushback. So did Charlie Kirk, made what I think is an entirely appropriate comment, just noting the rash of sudden death in young male athletes. But he got skewered by USA Today and much of the corporate media, who seemed to be grossly overreacting and inferring that he was, I think it was kind of a projection or something psychological. I don't know what to say, but where they all assumed that he was inferring that this was a vaccine-related death, and so stating, when in fact he absolutely didn't state that. And then we had armchair physicians jumping in, including sports medicine physicians, jumping in and making diagnoses based on only the data that comes from the video coverage of the event, and the subsequent reports of the clinical history. All of this, I mean, it's totally to the playbook. Once again, the tribes have split. There are those, it's really better to think of as a spectrum. There are those that are in the, this is absolutely a cardiac sudden death due to the jabs. Of course, they don't have any data as to when the gentleman received a dose, or how many doses he's received, or any of that information. There was something posted on the web from someone claiming to be his physician, but that's been debunked, who had asserted that the product had been administered late last year, in the last week of December, but that was determined to be a fraudulent account. that's since disappeared. So it's, and we have the absolutely this was death by vaccine on one end of the spectrum, and the absolutely it wasn't death by vaccine at the other end of the spectrum. It's a little skewed, the distribution. The corporate media seems to be all in pretty much on the absolutely this can't be vaccine related. And then there's the voices in the wilderness, such as myself, saying, hey guys, let's slow down a little bit, take a deep breath, recognize the possibility that actually it could be both Commotio cordis and vaccine related. Commotio cordis, the literature is sparse. There are very few cases, very, very few cases, only one in the registry that has to do with a football injury, American football injury. Usually it's being struck by a high velocity, small, hard object, such as a baseball or a hockey stick. Those that are in the this absolutely must be Commotio cordis and can't be vaccine injury camp, all discount the fact that football shoulder pads, modern football shoulder pads, actually have a plastic chest protector that is integrated that covers the cardiac area that would disperse any blunt trauma to the precardiac area. We're back in the usual he said, she said, with nobody actually having the data, and everybody lobbing spitballs at each other. It's so childish. You were referring to bullying behavior before we started the piece, and there's tons of that going on. I did a hit earlier today with Charlie Kirk, who was really taken aback and appeared to be a little bit bruised from the nastiness that he's getting. When I told him that he had to talk to his lawyer, that it looks like yet another case of malicious defamation. But so it goes. This is the new battlefield, right? Over.
It's yeah. I looked at his. I'll pull it up. I looked at his tweet, and it's what is it? Right here. Nope. Here we go. This is a tragic and all too familiar sight right now. Athletes dropping suddenly. It does seems pretty normal, right? And then if you look at the comments, it is just
pretty fair and balanced.
Right. I feel like that's as much as a diplomatic tweet as you could make, right? I mean,
when I recorded with him this morning, he shared the story, the context. He and wife were making dinner. He was casually watching the game. He's a big fan with the sound off. And he noticed some kerfuffle on the field. Then they cut to a commercial, and then they came back, and both quarterbacks were standing around, and it just looked absolutely abnormal. And then he composed this tweet, which I thought was entirely appropriate. But as you see from the comments, gross overreaction. Everybody's ready to verbally assault the other side, or it seemed, frankly, Tommy, to be truthful. The preponderance of the ugliness is coming from the side which asserts that this couldn't possibly be due to a vaccine injury. They're rabid on that side of defending the products in the face of all of the mountains of data, including Ed Dowd's book, which is pretty compelling. That something's going on here, and that was Charlie's position, is just that, hey guys, this ought to be looked into.
Yeah, and it is a weird thing when you say this is tragic and people jump on you and say, oh, you just hate Moderna. And it's like, you just jump. That's like, you ever been in a conversation with someone on a long car ride and the conversation kind of stops, but you keep thinking in your head, and then it goes from topic to topic to topic, and then you bring up, you're like, man, what was Sister Barnett's problem? And it's like a nun who was your fourth grade teacher, and your brother looks at you and is like, the hell are you talking about? Like the last thing you were talking about was whatever, the football game. It is kind of like that, where you just float an idea. You're like, this is tragic. And they're like, says the guy who hates Pfizer. And you're like, how the hell did
Yeah.
you just go from A to Q? And
Yeah.
it does. I messaged a sports medicine doctor who I've talked to before. Even he had the most measured response. He said, I don't know. No one even knows if he's vaccinated. No one knows what's going on. Everybody wants to be a doctor. And that's exactly what it is. But we are this is a microcosm of, I suppose, what the new year is and is continuing from last year, and it's obliterate the center. Just polarize like there is no tomorrow. This is the center is it's the no man's land of World War One. Shell it to oblivion, make it the North Korean DMZ. And if you dare wade out there with an olive branch, you're gonna step on a landmine and or get shot in the face. And I don't know if this is a good this is a good sign for the coming year.
Interesting point. A lot of people are basically speculating that 23 may be quite ugly.
Oh God.
Because we've got to resolve what has transpired here. And to do that, the stakes are huge. That some people are going to be proven right, and some people are going to be proven wrong, and there are likely to be consequences. There will be legal consequences, um, potentially criminal, but absolutely uh, um, civil cases. What happens if Mr. Elon Musk continues to drop documentation that unequivocally demonstrates that the First Amendment has been systematically breached by the current administration in a coordinated fashion? Like I keep saying, Tommy, and I'll say it again. Steve Bannon just glossed over this. He wouldn't respond, which is an interesting tell. What I said was, what what recourse do we have if it becomes clear that members of the administrative state, federal employees, from the highest level to the lowest level, have sworn to uphold the Constitution, uphold and defend the Constitution, have cooperatively conspired to subvert the First Amendment? What recourse do we have? What is the remediation? And the only one that I think we have is impeachment, and that's not going to happen in this Senate. So basically, we normalize public officers breaching their constitutional duties, and that does not go anywhere good. But the public is going to have to confront at some point what has transpired here, and that we have had, as I've said again and again, we have all been subjected to military grade psychological operations and fifth generation warfare technology deployed against the citizens of the United States and most of the Western nations. Where does that go? I'm perplexed in it profoundly. This is deep from the heart, for real. Where does this go? Because I don't see any easy way to resolve
it. I've thought about this a lot, and for me, COVID kind of pulled the veil back and I don't think I'm a naive individual, which I guess is a naive statement. But the more I looked at COVID and the cooperation of big pharma with the government and media, at first it's, oh my God, how did they do this? And then it's, I couldn't, how in the world could the FDA and the CDC be so allegedly corrupt? And then eventually it starts to dawn on you that, like the first time I ever got caught drinking, Dad, this is the first time I've ever drank. Okay. And then the first time you get caught, smoking pot, this is the first time I've really, I mean, really, that we're just rolling double sixes every time. You get to a point where you go, hey, this has happened before, and I think you're lying to me, and they'll never admit it. But it starts to dawn on you that, hey, maybe COVID is just, we're seeing this, and the reason why they're so brazen is because they've been getting away with it for decades, and now all of a sudden, the opaque glass is all of a sudden clear, and everyone's looking at it. And at first, you have that shock value and rejection. The CDC couldn't do this. The FDA, look at it, it's a doctor in a white coat. And then you start to maybe look at Oxycontin or Suboxone or thalidomide or, unfiltered cigarettes. And you get that deep, uneasy feeling that, no, this is the first one you've caught. It can only then lead to, I cannot believe they were cooperating with Facebook and Instagram. And then you start to go, oh, yeah? How far back does this go? Are they so brazen? Because they're so brazen. You go, this isn't a first time offender. This is someone who's robbed a bank every Friday for 10 years. And
DARPA created the internet, and they were thinking about what they were going to do with it from the very outset.
But then you got to go back to, like, you look at after 9/11 when they're surveilling domestic communications. Then you go back to, I think it was called the Black Vault. It was the predecessor to the NSA. Before World War II, it was World War I, where they went to the heads of all, like, the telegram companies and were like, this is for now. And you're like, oh man, this predates my grandparents by 2 decades.
Yeah.
That is what I think we're coming to, which is interesting because they're going to keep acting in this manner because they did it, their predecessors did it, and their predecessors did it. So where does this go? I don't know. I think right now the next event horizon is what happens when people start to understand how deep the roots go. I don't even, You're looking 3 steps ahead. I'm looking 1 step ahead. What happens? Do people break mentally? I don't know.
Yeah, the cognitive dissonance is going to be extremely painful. It's the major source of psychological pain. Where, or is it just going to be normalized? Are they just going to say, yeah, well, so what? Just like I'm glad to give all my personal information to whoever is going to troll for it on the internet. And I'm just going to accommodate myself to that fact. Yeah. Just like the fact that I'm accommodated to the fact that my iPhone is probably spying on me on a continuous basis, given who I am and what I do. And I just accept that that's likely to happen. It's always been in the culture in DC, down in the little people like myself, that you should always assume that anything that you say or write could end up on the front page of the Washington Post, and act accordingly, right? So in other words, self-censor from the get-go, because the probability that anything you say or write, or these increasingly think, will be known by those who seek to compile information. And I've come to accept that. Is that going to be what we're going to do? Is we're just going to accept the fact that the U.S. government is deeply corrupted?
I think, unfortunately, that's probably like a 50% probability best case scenario.
Yeah.
I think you'll see. I think there's a small percentage of people that truly don't have the mental horsepower, and they'll just say, well, you're evil if you have nothing to hide. I think there are a lot of people that will come to the conclusion of, well, if you can't push back peacefully, the next step's violent revolution. And they're going, you can't
Oh, that
end the national security. And I'm not calling for it. I'm saying it's a JFK quote, right? Those who make peaceful opposition impossible make violent revolution inevitable. And we saw what happened to him. And then the next step after that will be, well, this isn't your government of 1776. This is a national security state that can bully other nation states. What are you going to do? And it might lead to just, it might just be,
yeah
hey, the world's dark. I got to bring my kid to school. I don't
yeah
know. You might,
that I agree. That is the pivot, the um, the moment in time, the hinge that we're at right now, and that door could swing either way.
yeah,
And I think you made a comment that a large fraction of the population, like they say, a little less than 50% of the population has an IQ of 80. Not to be rude, but that's just the honest truth. And so there are those that, and I'm frustrated by them. Those that communicate in the various chat rooms that can't be bothered to do a browser search. They can't be bothered to use anything other than Google. And when they identify information, they can't be bothered to read it. They'll just grab some little fragment that confirms their pre-existing bias and spit it out at you. And they're not spending the time to try to think and process the information that's even available to them. I still say the only way forward is to do our best to educate and to empower people to think for themselves. But I do despair a little bit that it's the labor of Sisyphus. We're just
yeah.
going to be pushing that rock forever.
And most people I talk to about this, how old are you, Dr. Malone? I feel like I'm allowed to ask you that. You're a guy. You guys,
64.
okay, 64. Most people I talk to about this, whether doctors or tier one operators, they all kind of end with like, well, I won't be here for it. And then I'm always kind of like, all right, well, I'm 32, and I'm like, I will be here for it. But I think I don't think we're going to see violent revolution. And I'm not just saying that to be legally intelligent. I just don't think we're going to see it. But I also don't think that we're going to see 100% of the population submissively take it. I think we're probably going to see some sort of schism, but unlike the physical schism we saw in the Cold War, where it's the Iron Curtain. I mean, it's literally trying to get across the border. You have the free world and then the communist world. Instead, I think they're going to be directly overlapped on one another. And I think the first wedge was vaccinated, unvaccinated. The next will be, what we're seeing it already, right? Are you on Rumble or YouTube? Are you on Getter or Twitter? I think we're going to continue to see a parallel society built on top of one another, as separate as the English alphabet and the Cyrillic alphabet. They can still coexist in the same room, but they're going to be carrying completely different information. And that would, I would imagine, over time, coalesce into a physical separation. And if I had to put it all on it, it would be, and I've brought it up before, I think it's going to accumulate in probably an actual new group of people. And this is really out there on Mars. And you gotta hear me out. I know we gotta wrap this up in a couple minutes, so I'll try to keep it on Earth, no pun intended.
You're just busy sucking up to Elon. I know.
Hey, he won't come on here. I've tried to get him on here. I've pitched him interviews with Apollo astronauts. I'm like, I have Joe Rogan can't interview this. He won't respond. That being said, and I am trying to suck up on Elon because I'm still banned from Twitter. So go figure. But I always look back and you go, why in the world would people leave the most advanced place in the world in like the 1700s, right? Great Britain, the head of the empire. And you go, why would you get on a ship that takes 3 months to get to a new world that you might not even survive? And when you do get there, there's nothing there. There's no airport. You don't know what's there.
Well, it's worse than nothing. It's a lot of nasty.
Well, it's also a lot of nasty. You're gonna get killed, and if you're not killed by the indigenous population, you're gonna be killed by some bacteria or just the elements.
The
And
critters.
yeah, no technology. There's no phone to call back to Earth to, and the only contact you are gonna have with the former world is probably them coming to shut down your little insurrection. And you go, why in the world would educated people ever do that? And sure, you read it, freedom of religion and freedom of you. Okay. But then you look at where we are now. And I can only imagine that in 100 or 200 years, people will go, why in the world did people from the United States, educated people with access to the suburbs and Uber Eats and Netflix, why did they get on rocket ships that might explode? Best case will take 9 months to get to a new planet. And if you get there, there's nothing there. You're probably going to die. And if you set up a new civilization, the only contact you're going to have with the old one is them coming to suppress your insurrection. And you would say to them, well, freedom of speech because this world has gone mad. And I can only start to maybe understand what the people going on those ships believed. Why not? You got nothing else to lose. So that's my
So,
out there take. We're going to
uh,
Mars.
once upon a time, we lived in this bizarre community at Davis, California. That was kind of backwards. It had a whole lot of common area, and it was planted with edibles. And one of the people that lived there was a gentleman named Kim Stanley Robinson. And if you're a Mars fan, I hope you've read his series that begins with the Mars trilogy that begins with Red Mars. So you might want to do that.
Okay.
It lays out a scenario, and this was written 30 years ago. But Hugo Award winning science fiction. And it kind of goes through in 3 volumes, evolution of a Mars community. It's going to be pretty rough for the first ones, but they're going to have the benefits of first immigrant that will be passed down to their children. But I think Mars can be terrascaped. I think that's viable. It's not going to be an easy life, especially for the first few waves. And yeah, in a world in which you find that you don't have much to lose, why the hell not? Maybe that's a goal. I don't know, but it's worth thinking about for sure.
No, but really, and then you start to think on like these massive system of systems, every evolutionary DNA particle and cell and organism interacting together. This might be this might be what biospheres do. You don't leave the nest unless you're kicked out. We might, if we had some god tier intelligence, we might look at this and go, yeah, that's the point. There's supposed to be this technocratic dictatorship. That's what makes you go to the next, and you go, oh, when you're an adult, you go, oh, that's why my parents really
That's
did love
it's
me.
your comments are strangely optimistic.
I
In kind of
try.
a twisted way. Uh, and I feel the need to cite uh, my heroes as I was growing up. I was an avid science fiction fan. The cyberpunk genre, Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, um, uh, Kim Stanley Robinson, of course, uh, the cyberpunk genre has anticipated much of our modern dystopia, and I think there's a lot to be gathered in terms of insights from these folks that are basically just a generation before us, futurists, imagining tomorrow's world. They've already kind of explored intellectually a lot of the key issues that we're now grappling with in a real way. A lot of the foundations of the internet, the idea of flash mobs, many of the things that we now take for granted as part of our reality were anticipated in those fiction genres. And Snow Crash, many people cite as one of the most prescient of those novels. So I think this is as we're here in the winter months, maybe we should compile a dystopia reading list. Or I had suggested when I was coming back from Istanbul and we were stuck in an airport, I started corresponding. If I had my wish right now, I'd love to have a dystopia film festival.
Oh God.
In which we brought together a lot of these classic films, uh, Mad Max being an obvious one, and the Mad Max sequels. We had these Terminator, all of these, and of course the Matrix series has given us the metaphor that defines the last 3 years, with red and blue pills. In the Matrix, I think it would be fun to bring together these things and then juxtapose them with some of the alternative films that are coming out about the response to the pandemic, and they're popping up from all over the world. I think that could be real fun. And if I had my druthers, we'd do the film fest in Hollywood just to like poke a finger in their eye,
just to really, really. It's, you know, it kind of makes me think of, and I've brought this up before, but the like poetic analogies to a non-sterilizing vaccine is you push variants. I mean, you're squeezing the
Absolutely.
toothpaste tube, it shoots out.
Hey,
And
stop that. That's conspiracy thinking.
oh
That
God.
has been debunked repeatedly. You can't say those things. Yeah,
Oh
that
well.
was I started saying that on Bannon forever ago,
Oh God.
and just got reamed. And Navarro and I wrote an op-ed about this in the Washington Times, which got resoundingly fact-checked by none other than Facebook.
Oh.
Yeah. So there it is. No, so the bizarre, twisted thing is that folks like you and me that think kind of for a living can see right through this. And I guess one of the benefits of recording as you do, or writing as I do, is that we're providing a document trail that hopefully will not get memory hold, and will demonstrate that, no, I'm sorry, Tony Fauci, you cannot fall back on the argument that no one could have imagined this would happen. That's at a baseline minimum, we've made it hard for them to make that argument.
Yeah.
So on that note, let's break for now.
Sure.
Come back sometime in the near future. But I think in some, the current debate about Commotio Cordis versus vax injury, I think we can both agree that let's just let the doctors and the patient do their business, leave them alone. Get the press out of the patient's hospital room, and stop trying to diagnose and wage information war against each other. I think it's just bad, and it's really dysfunctional, and the data are consistent. I personally, my bias is there's a high probability that we're going to find that there was some pre-existing vax damage, which lowered the threshold for the Commotio Cordis event to occur. And the literature shows pre-existing cardiac damage can make it so that a lower impact force can yield the phenomena. And that's if I had to bet, that's where I would be, I think, at this moment for this poor gentleman.
Real quick, this is kind of fascinating. I wonder if we're going to see like some sort of Spartan duel between the power of pharma and the power of the NFL. If it turns out that it was vax, or if it wasn't vax, they're going to want to go football savage, and the NFL is going to come out and say, no, this was Moderna. That's going to be an interesting battle.
Yeah, that's like Ed Dowd trying to set up the pharma versus the insurance industry.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
uh,
well, what's the last time someone took two highly dense materials and shot them at each other? It resulted in an A bomb. Was it the plutonium pocket and the plutonium slug? That
yeah.
might be where we're going. So, with that, 72 hours into this new year, it's looking bright. It's 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 looking
Well,
fantastic.
if you're a podcaster commentator, there's going to be a lot of stuff for us to opine on.
We are the commentators at the end of the world. It's just we provide the entertainment as the plane is banking into the mountain. So take it for
uh,
what you will. I don't know. I think it'll be good.
yeah, we'll see.
Yes, sir.
So thanks. I look forward to um, a merry time with multiple future
Absolutely.
opportunities to chat. Okay.
Absolutely, Dr. Malone. Thank you so much. A happy New Year's. And all jokes aside, it's gonna be a good year. I refuse to accept that it's gonna be a bad year. If it's a bad year, I won't be here to witness it. Probably be dead. So I think it's gonna be a good year. Have a happy New Year's, everybody. God bless, Dr. Malone. Thank you so much. Your book, your social media, everything, as always, will be in the description. Take care.